Dan, it's all yours for the start.
Right. Well, thank you, everyone. Good to see you all this evening on what looks like it's been a nice week so far weather-wise. A lot better than if we had this meeting a week ago. It's quite frigid, so hopefully we won't get that kind of weather anymore. But I want to thank you all for coming over tonight to help kick off this meeting of the Master Plan Update Committee. And I want to thank again you for being here. We've got a couple of folks that not able to be here tonight, so they'll be joining us in subsequent meetings. But appreciate your willingness to serve, and thank you to our staff that's here. They make it all possible for us. So I want to just share a couple of thoughts as we kick off this important work regarding the master plan. And your time, your insights, your commitment to our city is going to be instrumental as we work together shaping the future of the city. So let me talk a little bit about what we've got ahead of us here, just to help level set. As members of the committee know that you are the voice of the citizens of Wildwood. So it's a tremendous responsibility, and your participation is critical. But know that we want you to share your ideas, raise your concerns. Don't hesitate to speak up at any time. Your perspective matters throughout this process. And the work we do here is going to guide Wildwood for years to come. So it's key here. And I want to reflect a little bit on what makes Wildwood special, because there are some things I've made it a point to make sure I reiterate to folks, because we just like where I live at home, this is my home. I look at the world around me there. But Wildwood is truly a special city. We are 68 square miles. And that makes us one of the largest municipalities by area in the state, probably the third largest, third or fourth, depending on who you ask. So we are quite large. In fact, when you look at St. Louis County and the city, we are larger than any other municipality, including the city of St. Louis. We are actually at least triple the size of any city in St. Louis County, with the exception of Chesterfield. We're double their size. So it makes us quite large there. What's also unique about us, we have 35,417 residents. So we're up there population-wise as well. But it creates a unique dynamic because we've got a lot of open space in Wildwood. We also have close-knit communities in Wildwood. It's a win-win, really, when you look at Wildwood. There's a place for anyone and everyone in this city, right? Whether you like rural spaces or whether you want to have a couple of acres of land, there are options. But the people really are what make the city extraordinary, right? We have a family-oriented community. You see that when we have our concerts, how people get together. It's just amazing how we do things. Even most recently in December, we had our holiday market and we had our tree lighting. It's just amazing. And, nearly a third of the households have children under 18 in this city. So we have, a lot of young families. Our residents are highly educated. Over 60% of adults hold a bachelor's degree or higher. And that compared to the national average, that's double. And the median household income is also higher than any of the neighboring communities. So it reflects a lot of good stability in the families that we have here. So our demographic sets us apart. Wildwood people have a deep appreciation for the outdoors, for nature. We have a lot of that's around us. It's reflected in the work that we do. We preserve green space and maintaining the character of the city. And folks like that balance. They like having a balance between suburban living and access to natural beauty. We've got trails, parks, outdoor amenities. They are part of the life. But also in Wildwood at the center, we have the town center here, which is 800 plus acres. So it also exemplifies our city's thoughtful approach to growth. In the town center, when you look at just how big Wildwood is, really it's about 2% of all the land in this whole city that we have. And yet it is the center, right? Where we do most of our shopping, we have walkability for those that like to be able to walk from their home to the town center. And there's that mix of residential, retail, and community spaces. We're working on the Village Green. That's going to be very exciting this year. So that will be the home for where we hold all events in the future, brings the people together. But we also have challenges as well that I want to make sure we have to acknowledge. You know, we have competing retail hubs in other neighboring cities. We have vacant spaces, and we have the need to balance growth, which is always an ongoing concern. But I think you have to look at it as an opportunity for our city, right? That we have exciting opportunities where our town center can be vibrant for our city. You know, it's been part of the plan since this city was incorporated. But also when you look at a little bit like from the governance perspective, when it comes to our finances here in government, we have some constraints, some challenges as a city. So unlike many municipalities, there are 88 municipalities in St. Louis County. 11 of them do not have any real estate tax. We are one of them. So we do not collect real estate taxes. Even those people that think they pay taxes, they do not come to Wildwood. But they do go to the county, the school district, the fire district, the museum zoo districts, and et cetera. That limits also our revenue because we're really reliant on the pool sales tax system, which is a pool of cities in the county that share the tax revenue amongst each other. So therefore, we have limited resources in our city that are available for our city's infrastructure and services. So that really forces us to be very strategic and innovative as we plan for the future. Economic development is an essential part of this conversation. And you'll see that in the master plan. While Wildwood, we're not suited for the large-scale commercial projects, we have significant opportunities to focus on niche markets. You know, Wildwood may not even realize it, but I counted over 15 businesses that have a theme around health and wellness in Wildwood. Got a number of personal training businesses, yoga studios, you know, doctors. So it's right there. Sometimes we don't even realize just what kind of treasure we have. So it's just an opportunity of taking a look. But our city's natural beauty, the community identity, the outdoor amenities position us to attract businesses and visitors who share our values. And by supporting our local entrepreneurs, some of them that are here tonight, and looking forward to hearing your voices, you know, promoting the recreational activities, leveraging our town center, we can really help strengthen the economy while still staying true to our character of our city. So in wrapping up things, I just want to say that your work is really central to all of this. It's about understanding who we are, you know, making sure that we align the values, the resources, and the vision to the future. So as we begin the process, I want to encourage you to think boldly, bring your energy to the table. Again, do not be afraid to share your thoughts, but truly open up your mind to what's around us here. It's pretty amazing, you know, just looking at this city, how big it is, what's out there. So be creative, be thoughtful, and remember that your work is going to have a lasting impact. So thank you again for the opportunity for me to kick this off.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Mayor Garitano. That was very well said, and I appreciate it. First of all, I'll do a quick introduction. There's a few people I've not met on a regular basis. I'm Joe Funich. I'm the Director of Planning and Parks. And the Department of Planning will be managing this process for you. We will provide us guidance and we'll take that guidance and do our best to reflect that in things that are tangible. New goals, new objectives, new policies, new thoughts, new approaches, those things. So the group that we have here tonight, we'll introduce ourselves here very shortly. But if you have questions, we are here to help. Don't hesitate to contact us. And as the mayor said, the input is essential. Keeping all the great place to live, work, and play. With that, I just have a few housekeeping items that I wanted to go over with all of you that may not be as familiar with City Hall as some of us. First, we're in this room. And as you can see, we have a pretty large square. And ultimately, we'll probably have about 30 people sitting around this square. There'll be 23 of you, individuals that will guide the process for our master plan. And we'll have a facilitator by our next meeting. We'll have the Department of Planning and Parks personnel, and then a consultant or two that will come in when a particular need is essential for our process. We could move to the council chambers, but the council chambers doesn't lend itself well to technology. And so we thought it best to try to maybe squeeze in here. We can do YouTube and we can do Zoom. So if you aren't available to come to City Hall in person, you can basically click the link, be on Zoom and participate anywhere you might be. So there's a rationale why we're kind of wedged in here. And hopefully it'll work out and it'll be okay. But I think having our meetings available to others to see and then members that can't be here to participate is probably a priority. That's why we're here. So I've explained that. So yes, we will be on Zoom and YouTube. So anything you say will be remembered forever. So that's the good news. Typically at these meetings like tonight, we'll have water at your seat. There's cold soda in the refrigerator as well as cold water. We'll have coffee. And given the time we meet, we'll always have a little snack just in case to cover you if you had a quick dinner and had to come in a hurry. Restrooms, if you're not familiar, they're out this door to the south and just behind the wall, there's a men's, women's, and a family restroom. So please, if you need it, help yourself. There's two areas of parking, one out on Main Street and the access is accessible, but there's also parking behind the building. That parking is accessible as well. And if you ever need it, we have an elevator that does function. So again, we have two areas of parking. Depending on what else is going on in the building, sometimes you may have to go to the south lot or behind the building. Please know that we have ample parking. Tonight's meeting is going to be a bit of an outlier. Mayor Garitano and the Department of Planning and Parks will spend most of the time tonight kind of orientating you to some of the things you have before you, particularly the task at hand, updating our master plan after 10 years. But after that, they've, for all intents and purposes, we'll roll up our sleeves and there'll be working meetings. And Department of Planning and Park staff will be there to answer questions, ensure we get accurate notes, and then produce the products that you want us to do so you can see them at the next meeting. So again, this is unusual. A lot more conversation from this side of the table than three sides. But I think it's important that we at least build a common foundation with all of you tonight. So when we leave tonight, you'll know each other, something about each other, and that what we gave you and why we gave it to you in the binder, and then just our process in a very kind of brief snapshot. And part of that again is our introductions. I did mention we will have a facilitator. It'll be an independent party. That independent party will manage the discussions and for the most part, keep us on track relative to the agenda. Also, the facilitator relinquishes our responsibility to try to do two things. First, to manage a meeting, which obviously we think we can do, They're probably not as good as the facilitator we want to engage. But secondly, if we're managing the meeting, we can't pay the 110% attention we need to your process and your thoughts and your comments and your suggestions. So it frees us up to focus on what's being said, not necessarily making sure that if we said the public only has 5 minutes to speak per individual, we're not there with our clock time. So we'll have a facilitator at the next meeting. Secondly, there are a group of consultants that will be asked to participate. One of the consultants will be doing our public outreach. And I'll go in a little bit more detail about this before we conclude tonight's meeting. And also, we are in negotiations with Jonathan Barnett, the original author of the master plan back in 1995. Barnett is a renowned planner, does work across the world, and most recently is at the University of Pennsylvania in their urban design studio. So he's a wealth of knowledge. And from the perspective of the city council in our name, thought was Mr. Barnett sees a lot more things in his travels than most of us here at City Hall see in our daily travels. So he can bring a unique perspective. What are we missing that we just don't know about? And those are the things we want to capture for you and let you tell us what you think. So he'll be an important part. We'll have some people here to help us with any of the graphics, mapping, things along those lines. But if you need something, we'll do our very best to get it in a timely manner and to all of you. Maybe not the next meeting, but somewhere along the line, our city attorney will provide you some guidance. You are a body that has been formed by city council through the appointment of recommendations of the mayor. So there's a few things you need to know relative to quorums, conversations over email, things like that. Because again, we are a public body. All of our meetings are open to the public. We post agendas, things like that. And so just so we don't get crisscrossed with our attorney general or someone that wants to participate and feels like they've been locked out, we'll have that little brief kind of introduction to, our Robert's Rules of Order 101. And then tonight, after we do our introductions, one of the things I will ask you to do immediately is to consider electing a chair and vice chair. In the past two updates that we've done, 2005 and 2015, the success of those, I think, was having leadership from the group. Someone that is a resident or a business owner, and someone that basically you may feel more comfortable talking to about something that's on the agenda or something that was said at one of the meetings that you didn't understand. I hope that wouldn't be the case, but again, we found it to be a very successful formula. And we think a chair and vice chair is necessary for the simple reason is, and if you didn't know this, you will know it here shortly. This is going to take us about a year. And it's a long stretch. It's about a dozen or more meetings. And so we don't have the assumption, we will not make the assumption that you can make every meeting. And that goes for the person that's the chair and the vice chair. So sometimes everybody needs a little help. So if the chair is away on vacation, the vice chair can step in and vice versa. So we're going to do that. So restrooms, snacks, liquids, parking. I think I've covered it all. Are there any questions? I know some might be a little less hesitant to talk about themselves, but I think it's important tonight that we know who's around the table. There's a lot of familiar faces for me, excuse me, but maybe not for you. So I'm going to ask the mayor that off and we'll work our way.
Oh, great. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I'm happy to kick it off. And I think, an introduction for everyone, maybe share where you live in the city, a little bit about your background. You've been involved in previous city volunteer work or on the city Board of Commission. But even if you haven't, you know, what maybe you've done that might be of interest, or certainly be a good way to, you know, mention maybe something that everyone might find of interest about you. Fun. So, you know, I'm Joe Garitano. I've been here in Wildwood. We moved here in 2008. And I think by chance is really how I got involved in the city government. Just an HOA president. Then all of a sudden, I stepped into the role as council member, now mayor, so happy to do it. I love the ability to talk to people in the community. I think it's one of the areas that I'm very comfortable with. So you like listening to people, the thoughts they have, and you know, a good number of you here because of those conversations that we've had. So glad to be a part of this here. I'm excited about the master plan. It's a key document. I will tell you, every person that runs for a city position, have you read the master plan? So you will get to mold and shape this, and we refer to the master plan always. So it is a foundation. It's like the Constitution of Wildwood, you know. But anyway, well, the charter too. But anyway, you know, I want this to be a good experience, a fun experience for everyone. So, you know, be yourselves, and you know, something interesting. I took up a little hobby, although I never continued it. Taking lessons flying planes over at Spirit Airport years back. So I did a discovery flight. I loved it. It took me over Wildwood too, so I got some good pictures. But I wish I would have followed through with that passion. I do love it. So that's my interesting part. And I segue now into a pilot right here. So there we go.
My name is Jim Rubis. I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I had served on the Wildwood Historic Preservation Commission and also on the Board of Adjustment. I spent 52 years flying airplanes. I'm a retired Air Force veteran, and
I'm Vicki Helfrey, and I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I met Joe through being trustee of my HOA, and I've lived in Wildwood since 1996. My first neighborhood, I was neighbors with Dan, and my second neighborhood, I don't have any of my neighbors here now, but Jim and I worked together over at St. Alban Row, and just got put on the Historic Preservation Committee, so I'll be talking to Robin, I guess, a little later on. And I worked with a couple people here on the town center update, so I'm kind of excited to do this. Oh, and I have 3 kids and lots of hobbies. There you go. Oh, and a wonderful husband, Jim said, so there you go. All right. Oh, Joe. Apparently I have a wonderful husband, which I do. My name is Becky Boomerschlegel, AKA Miss Becky from Miss Becky Salsa Shack. I moved here to Wildwood in February of 2016 from Southern California. Left a 32-year career at San Diego Zoo Global. The last 22 of those years I was in human resources and took care of the staffing and recruitment, community outreach, and I was getting ready to head up their college internship program. When my husband and I decided to leave, met the love of my life at the zoo. We got married at the zoo. He's a senior wildlife nutritionist. So his new job brought us here to Wildwood. And when I got here, it was just, well, gosh darn, what am I gonna do? So long story short, being from Southern California, I love Mexican food. And I got here to Missouri and it fell a little flat for me personally. So I'd always made my own chips, but I decided to create a salsa that reminded me of a hug from home. And I started off with one flavor and started my first farmer's market in July of 2021, thinking it would just be for the summer. And I'm heading into my 5th season with lots of different flavors. And it's become more than just chips and salsa. really been amazing, the opportunities and the people that I've met. And I recently organized Businesses of Wildwood. So the Wildwood Business Association ended at the end of 2023. And I thought it was something that was really important to continue maybe in a different way. So I considered a small grassroots business organization. And so we've just been doing this for about a year, and we meet once a month, and it's just an opportunity for brick and mortar and home-based businesses to be able to come together. And it's important that everybody be seen and heard and have a voice. So I'm excited to what Businesses of Wildwood holds. So that's kind of where I've connected there.
My name is April Baker. I've lived in Wildwood with my husband and children since 2018. My background is mostly in insurance. I'm a licensed insurance professional with a home and personal and property life insurance. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry. So many thoughts go through my head. But for the last 15 years, I've been assisting my husband with his small business and raising our 4 children. So that's where I've spent the majority of my time. We like to travel and spend time with our family. But most recently, a year ago, my son and I decided to open a retail store. Haven't done retail in 30 years, so it's been a learning experience. But we are located in town center. I own the Magnolia Soap and Bath. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary last weekend. So through this process, we've been to several, my son and I have attended several of the business forums, met lots of the community members, local business owners. Everyone's been so welcoming. So we're really excited to see what the next few years bring and to see how the city develops more. I have never seen or read the master plan of which you speak. But I'm all about reading manuals. So my family makes fun of me for that. I read car manuals, and now that they're digital, I'm very frustrated because I like paper. But yeah, I'm really excited to hear more about, so my husband was born and raised in Baldwin. My in-laws still live there. They're just neighboring down the road. And so I have heard stories about when Wildwood was formed and why, and all the various reasons that you sort of mentioned earlier. So I'm curious to learn more about that and to hopefully offer some, a different perspective. I might be the youngest one here. I shouldn't assume that, but I've never served on anything like this. And so I'm interested and anxious to learn from you all and your wealth of experience and various backgrounds. So that's me.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Deborah Smith McCutcheon. I'm the Ward 5 council person. I was watching the development of the city of Wildwood, the planning process, and said, that's where I want to raise my kids. Like Mr. Garantano, Mayor Garantano mentioned, there's a lot for kids to do here, a lot for us to do as a family. The open spaces, the type of government, those things drew me to Wildwood. In July of 1996, I moved in with my 2 sons, who are now grown, and I have 5 grandchildren from them, kind of bing, 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 unexpected, but delightful. I've served on, I think, every committee except planning and zoning since I became a council person. I was in an HOA meeting and they were looking for a council person because the other person who had been Ward 5 council person resigned. And so I was having a discussion and I thought, oh, what a wonderful thing to do, to give back to the city and the community. I have a master's degree in political science. So I love the governmental process and especially giving back to your city and how it works. And I love community involvement. I think that's key for our city. So I'm really happy to serve with you all on this master plan update.
Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Pick. I live in Wildwood and I operate my business from Wildwood, which is Pick Wolf Realty. And we moved, my family, which is my husband, and we have 1 daughter. We moved here in 2015. And pretty much right when we moved, I said to my husband, I wanted to leave my job in banking and become an entrepreneur. And I scared him to death, which if you're an entrepreneur, you just know how that is. I mean, thickness, you just want to, run your own business, which I love doing. You guys may know me or have heard of my company we hosted several drive-in movie nights during COVID, which Joe, you were instrumental in. So I really appreciate that. We had a phenomenal turnout. We got to meet so many residents and it just truly talk about a sense of community, doing an event like that and just walking through and talking to people, that was great. And I would love to continue to plan more events. At that point in time, I was with Remax and then we opened Pick Wolf Realty in 2023. So there's been a lot of just getting the business up and running. When I started my career in real estate, I was actually at Berkshire and they quickly made me a relocation expert. And there was just one problem. I wanted to sell everybody on Wildwood. I mean, I really am a huge fan of Wildwood. I think we're lucky to have the community that we have within St. Louis County. I've lived in St. Louis County almost my entire life. So Wildwood is special. And if somebody needs to be sold on it, I'm the person because I really do love it.
I'm Mike Rain. I'm a retired Air Force guy. Moved here with our family from Germany in 1991. We lived in what was then St. Louis County and endured several years of administration from Clayton. I've worked 10 years with the Bi-State Development Agency and 10 years with private industry, primarily in the purchasing and manufacturing area. Been involved in Scouts and the Lions Club, and I'm just, a longtime resident, and I'm just excited to be a part of this committee.
I'm Dan Roughton. We moved into the area in the early 80s, moved out for a while, came back, moved out for a little while, came back, been here for the last 10 years. Personally, I'm a retired engineering and operations professional. I've been volunteering with the city for the last 8 years, multiple ad hoc committees on the town center update team, which parallels this very well. In addition to that, I was a commissioner from the Historic Preservation Committee. Did some volunteer work for Habitat for Humanity. I just want to say the reason why I'm here, and I hope we all can work on together, is balancing green space with responsible development. And it's not one or the other. I'm sure we can work very hard at complementing both those things. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Vince Loyal. I'm representing Ward 8. Thank you, Mayor, for your confidence in allowing me to represent that ward. I'm fortunate in that I can literally walk to these meetings, so should I choose to do, not tonight, but I'm sure sometime over the next year I'll do that. I've had the good fortune of serving on several committees with the city. I was on the Town Center Update team, and I currently serve on the Board of Public Safety. In my previous life, I served the community as a member of Metro West Fire District. I was chief of the district and retired 10 years ago. I'm looking forward to this opportunity. Regarding the mayor's comments about a walkable community, my wife and I walk Town Center probably 5 times a week. Today was the first day I was able to get back out after the major snow events. Still a couple of spots that are a little icy, but all in all, it's looking pretty good and it's encouraging that spring's on its way. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity to continue to serve the community.
Thank you. I'm Larry Clayton. I live in Ward 4 since 1986 with my wife. We raised 2 daughters and we just absolutely love Wildwood. We're both retired. I retired after 36 years in the utility industry. And I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission because I mentioned to our council person that I really appreciated her representation, and if there was anything I could ever do to help her, let me know. And she said, "Oh, yes." and I said yes, and I've really enjoyed being a part of this.
My name is Louis Shakin. I am in Ward 5. I'm in Deb's great ward, and best ward there is out there. I have been a resident of Wildwood since 1999, so just almost 27 years. My background, I spent 23 years in commercial banking, and most recently I work for the Economic Development Council of St. Charles. I am their regional business director. So had a lot of experience the last couple of years working with St. Charles, is one of the fastest growing counties in Missouri. And what we do is we work with all the municipalities, Cottleville, Lake St. Louis, you name it, Prairie, Dardenne, Prairie, St. Peter's, and we just work to help economically make it viable. We help bring large corporations with site visits. We do workforce management. We do business capital financing, funding. We do a lot of IDA work. We do a lot of work with the EDA and grants and things like that. So I was the HOA president for my subdivision over here at Hickory Manor, which is about 300 homes. I started right before COVID, then COVID hit. It was supposed to be a 2-year term, which stretched to a 5-year, and finally got out of that, but thought, I really enjoyed it, and I saw this opportunity posted, so I'm looking forward to working with the community.
Hi, y'all. I'm Rob Rambo. I'm 5th generation to live on the same 50-ish acres out in Western Wildwood. I was born there in 1955. I am a physicist, engineer, tree farmer. I retired about better part of 2 decades ago, and have spent the bulk of my time working to restore the habitat on the land that I have and kind of try to get it back as close to the way it was when the Native Americans lived there, which is it's an impossible task, but it keeps me out of trouble. This is my 5th year as a city council member, so I have a term and a half left to go, but it seemed part of my responsibility to learn more about planning and zoning. So I attended with another council member the Chancellor's Certificate in Planning and Zoning program at UMSL, which I highly recommend. It was very engaging and I learned a lot. And I have one more of an endless string of alphabet after my name. But I have just a little bit about myself is I have just way too many hobbies to list, but I kind of split the difference between Joe and Jim because I have 3,000 flight hours, although half of them are upside down. And I have flown over St. Charles County way too much because it's very evident from the air just how much destruction has occurred. Bulldozers knock down a few hundred acres worth of trees and pop up houses everywhere. Wildwood is not like that, and my goal is to try to keep it the way it is today. So that's me.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm a planner with the Department of Planning and Parks. I wear the hat of staff liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, which is probably my passion along with youth and local government. But I also work with the Board of Adjustment and the Architectural Review Board here at the city. I did grow up in this area. I went to LaSalle Springs Middle School and Eureka High School. And then spent my career mostly in other states before I boomeranged back here after the pandemic. I started my career in health and human services and education before I went and pursued a master's degree in planning, wanting to work more at the macro level. And interesting fact about me is after I graduated with my master's degree, my partner, a transportation planner, and I bicycle toured Europe from Ireland to Croatia. And we called ourselves Planners on Tour. We stopped at various cities and localities along the way, even one of the national parks, and we interviewed planners and wrote up our interviews in a blog and our travel stories. So that really gave me an opportunity to get a sense of different ways to do things in different parts of the world. So that's a little bit about me.
That's really hard to follow that. My name is Melanie Ripito. I'm the Assistant Director of Planning and Parks. And this is actually the fourth city that I've worked at. I started in Maryland Heights, oddly enough, in code enforcement, while I was working on my master's in urban planning and real estate development. And from there, town and country, Manchester, and then I landed here. And I can say that Wildwood is unique in many ways from a planning perspective. I mean, just as Mayor Garitano mentioned, all of the many ways that it stands out from other counties. And half of planning in Wildwood is preserving, because that's one of the biggest goals, is to keep a lot of the open space and the parks and facilities. And so that being said, I would also like to echo their sentiment in thanking you for coming out and being a part of this. Updating a master plan is a big deal, and it does, regulate things for the future coming. And we appreciate you coming out and putting your time into this. And that's about it, all I've got. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Travis Newberry. I'm the Senior Planner for the Department of Planning and Parks. I've been with the city for about 9.5 years now. And before that, I worked at a couple of other governments, the Great Rivers Greenway Regional Trail Organization. I was there for a few years, and then also Madison County, Illinois Planning Department for about a year. I have a master's degree in public administration from SIU Edwardsville. Back up. Here at Wildwood, I work with the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and a number of the other, city council and other groups. Like most people at City Hall, I wear a lot of different hats at different times. So I don't think I have anything else to add to that introduction, but I know a lot of the faces around the room from over the years, so it's nice to see you, and nice to meet the new folks, so thanks.
And if you have a technology problem, Travis is the person. So can't download something.
He's probably the
Gladly take your
youngest guy
call.
here, so he's the technology guy.
Lastly, again, my name is Joe Vunich. I'm the Director of Planning and Parks. I was one of the 4 original employees when the city incorporated September 1st, 1995. So if you do the math, I'm going on 30 years here. Thank you for sharing about yourself. Very much appreciated. Obviously, you all bring a wealth of experiences and education, and we hope we can tap into that to make this update of the master plan the best one we've ever had. And with that, I think we'll switch gears and maybe talk about the election.
Yeah, and actually, just before I mention, we have one member that's been appointed that's not able to be here tonight in Ward 5, Hannah Avery. Ward 4, actually. So she was planning on attending, but had a last minute issue that prevented her from attending. We also have 3 more folks that will be joining, that will be appointed at the next city council meeting. So I've put forth for Ward 1, Elizabeth Broyles, who is a familiar name with the city and extensive experience in the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Deborah Coleman from Ward 6, who's also served Celebrate Wildwood Commission. That will also be presenting that we're finalizing our next city council. So that'll be good to get the full master plan team seated. Thank you for that. So yes, the next step is the chair and the vice chair.
So I'll offer this. Obviously, you've seen this particular item on tonight's agenda. Just hearing Mayor Garitano, we're down 4 or 5 people that potentially, I would think, would want to participate in the discussion. Given that tonight we're going to kind of give you information versus move around the table a lot and talk, would it be acceptable to forego the election tonight wait until we get the full complement of members and then have the discussion at that time. Again, if it was one or two people, it may not, as I say, it may not have as big of an impact. I think it'd be nice if we could wait if there's no objection. That also gives you time to think about being chair and vice chair. Little homework assignment for a few.
George, you have a question about that. I am not interested in either chair or vice chair, too scatterbrained and, but in the past, it has been problematic, because we have two sort of conflicting methods in Robert's rules for choosing the chair and vice chair. One is just the first one up, you vote, and if that person loses, only then do you go to the second person. It seems much fairer to just, everybody is nominated, and then you place an affirmative or make an affirmative vote for the person that you like, and if there's a tie, then you figure out how to break the tie. Is that the method that we're gonna use in this place because, or in this meeting, because the city attorney would not weigh in on which one was preferred, and so it still feels vague to me.
Mr. Mayor, this is something you deal with on
Sure.
a
Well, thank
day-to-day
you.
basis.
Well, I think, first we'll find out. If it's uncontested, it'll be pretty obvious that then, if we have one name to put forth for chair and one for vice chair. But if it does determine that we have more than one person interested, then, we can do a process where we just take a vote on the names to determine, who has the most names to do that.
The engineers in the room would have serious problem with method one and no problem at all with method two. So
So we'll see. We got time to figure that
Awesome.
out.
thank you.
And I'll consult with the city attorney and see if I can winnow them down to.
I tried. Good luck.
Never hurts to try.
Right.
Well, again, thank you for accommodating the change in agenda relative to the election. Again, there is a level of responsibility associated with it. Typically, we also prepare an agenda and talk that agenda over with the facilitator, the chair, and the team that forms the Department of Planning and Parks. So there is a little extra time for it all. But again, it's just your role. It's no more or no less in terms of the input you provide. As we expect all of you to be available and ready to talk. Yes, sir.
Because of the import of those positions, it ought to be somebody who's willing to do it and excited to do it. Can we ask from the audience, is there anybody who's would like to enter their name into nomination?
I think because we're deferred at the next meeting, certainly express it after the meeting, because we won't take any action anyway tonight, so it'll give folks a chance, but there might be questions to some folks on what's involved, and we can help answer those questions.
Well, there's no objection amongst the commission members. If you have an interest, you could let us know. And that way we could, at least as part of the discussion, we can say these people have contacted the department, have an interest in being chair. We talk to them prior to this.
I just had a question regarding the makeup of the committee itself. Are all participants voting members, if you will, or so people that are on the county council and then great. I wasn't sure as far and the staff. Okay.
We're here to help you and do the best job we can to make the process.
So a member of planning and zoning could be chair or city, I know Rob mentioned he would, but a council member could be chair as well.
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously there are some prohibitions in some of our enabling legislation for boards and commissions who can and can't be. But for the most part, although you've been nominated by the mayor and confirmed by city council, other than, I think, trying to make sure we make our motions appropriately and do the things relative to the sunshine law and postings, I'd like to think we could do this in a funner manner and make it a fun time for everybody. So Any questions relative to anything you've heard at this point? One last thing I do want to mention, between the facilitator and the chair, vice chair elected by you as the group, we'll emphasize to them, we're going to honor a 2-hour time frame at the most. I think all of us that have attended a lot of meetings, and it sounds like we've all done that through either our careers or since that time volunteering. After about a couple of hours, it gets hard to keep focused. And certainly from the standpoint of you all working all day long, it's a reasonable expectation that 2 hours, no matter where we are, we're going to conclude at the next meeting where we are. So we're on item 4 on the agenda if you're interested, and that's the master plan. So I'm going to try to be respectful of your time and not bore you with a lot of detail. But there are some key dates that I just wanted to kind of talk to you about. In 1989, there was a gentleman that was the principal engineer of Missouri Department of Transportation for what we call the Southwest District, which included what is now Wildwood. There was a group that was doing what we call community area studies, small land use plans. This gentleman, Mr. Yarnell, came to a meeting and said, we're thinking about building an outer belt through Wildwood. Here's what 3141 looks like. And we're thinking about doing it out here. And it would follow the 109 layout. Talk about people getting excited. So I think it was within a day or two, it was stop the outer belt, save the green belt. And that's kind of the roots of the incorporation effort. Because they were successful. Missouri Department of Transportation changed their plans. Obviously didn't build it out of that. And that step point forward, there's an expectation on a lot of residents out here to have more local input and decisions that would impact the quality. I mentioned the county and these community area studies. I will tell you, I worked in the county for 10 years and the ink wasn't dried on the plans and they were already and that was frustrating because a lot of good people spent a whole lot of time doing one for Pond Grover and the Wild Horse Creek Valley. That led to the incorporation effort. And it was a challenge. The Missouri Supreme Court, they had to rule to allow the question to be on the ballot. The question was on a February 1995 ballot. And about 4,000 plus people voted for the incorporation and just around 3,000 voted against it. The opponents really talked about concerns relative to Wildwood won't work because they won't have a tax base and they won't have funds to provide the essential services. Mayor Garitano and many before, along with city council members, will probably tell you we have a reserve that's the envy of many communities around St. Louis County. We as a group, you as residents, your elected officials, and people who work in City Hall every day took that challenge seriously. The St. Louis County was hesitant to, for all intents and purposes, certify the election and allow the incorporation to proceed forward. But sometime around Memorial Day in 1995, Westfall and the county executive and the county council, its 7 members, decided that it's enough, the voters have spoken, will concede. So from basically June 1st till September 1st, the incorporators pulled up their city. For all intents and purposes, I think they did a wonderful job. I will tell you that the county council had the privilege of appointing the first mayor and the first 16 council members. 8 of them were pro incorporation. 8 of them were opposed to the incorporation. So we had a mixed group. The master plan began that summer between June and September. A lot went into it through the incorporators and then eventually the appointed mayor and city council in terms of getting an idea of what that master plan should comprise. They engaged Jonathan Barnett on September 1st, 1995, that plan began to be formed. Helped us in 1995, September 1st, 1995, and then on for the next 7 months while that plan was developed is the city imposed the moratorium. We were not processing any new subdivisions, new rezonings, approvals of site plans, etc. We took a pause. And that pause was critical because with 4 staff members and for all intents and purposes, a lot of people that didn't have local government experience, it was a tall order to get done. It got done. And so that's why when you look at the master plan, you'll see these February dates. That's when the first master plan was adopted for the city, February 1996. That means there's been 2 updates. One that started in 2005 and concluded in 2006. The other 2015 and concluded in 2016. That's what I'm telling you. You've got a year, 2025 to 2026. So what's the role of this plan? Well, initially, it was a wedge that will basically be in the door to stop development and the threats of lawsuits from developers, because what we were saying is we based our zoning and subdivision on a plan that went through public review, public input, and ultimate adoption by the Planning and Zoning Commission and endorsement by City Council. So it was kind of the safety net, and it worked really well. We didn't have litigation against the city until the development that's the purposes of the former Cherry Hills Golf Course. It's now the enclaves of Cherry Hill. You wouldn't believe the original plan for that project. It was well in excess of 500 homes versus 100 units. So the master plan was the stopgap, and it became our kind of rock of Gibraltar, where we all stood, basically said, here's what we want. If you can comply with what we want, you're welcome to develop in Wildwood. And then if not, then obviously we have reasons why we're asking you to do that. And that's all of the elements that we'll talk about in just a minute. So again, the master plan was the guidance that we needed when we started. And as Mayor Garitano has mentioned, pretty much every meeting somewhere along the line, you'll see it in the report, you'll hear somebody say it, for the most part, it is weaved into all we do each and every day. There are 7 major elements of the master plan, and each one has a specific intent. There's the environmental plan, community service, transportation, open space and recreation, economic development. And the one that always is hammering to everybody is our land use plan. And that's where you'll ultimately say, these properties can be developed this way, but not any other way. For the most part, it's the greatest authority in many regards of the master plan. I say that because unique to Wildwood, and we've said that word a lot, unique tonight, is the fact that in our charter, we are a charter city. So consider the charter, which is part of your binder, our constitution. And in that charter, there is a provision that says the city council cannot approve of zoning that is contrary to the land use plan of the master plan. So it's law. We took basically what a lot of people would call a reference document, something that you hear a lot about being on a shelf that nobody uses. We made it law. So from a land use perspective, we have the protection of the charter, and the charter depends on the master plan to ensure that zonings that are considered favorably considered comply with that master plan. So very unique. So 7 elements plus the master plan, conceptual land need categories map. It's a mouthful, but we'll have it down here eventually. And in each of those, there are goals, objectives, and policies. In the last update, we added a new element, the 7th, and that's the economic development. There was a feeling that we're past that stage where we're scrambling to keep up with what's going on around us. And that new development, all those lots that St. Louis County approved, all of the things that we're trying to sort out in terms of new services, things like that, we needed to start refining. And I believe the economic development component was that refinement, saying we need to ensure that our town center is a viable location, that we have locations for home-based businesses, and when we have brick and mortar stores, we do all we can to ensure their success at all possible. 7 elements, goals, objectives, and policies. 2015, I'm not saying this is the approach we need to take, but that group, we went through all 7 elements, goal, objective, and policy, one by one. And we eliminated some, we revised others, and we added new ones. One of the key ones that was discussed in both 2006 and 2016 was rural internet. And as you know, if you live in the rural areas, that was a goal for many, many years of the city. It's just coming to fruition finally through the efforts of Mayor Boland, former Mayor Boland, Mayor Garitano, and a lot of city councilmen. So history, role, and components. Questions?
Excuse me, not your first rodeo.
Okay. Well, I'm going to jump on to the next topic if there's no questions, but if you think of one. I think the mayor, I'm on agenda item 5, and I think the mayor did a great job of explaining your role. You are the thermometer that tells if we have a fever or not, if we're sick or healthy. You have experiences that none of us as staff here at City Hall have. You live each day in a neighborhood, you interact with your neighbors, you drive on our roads, you see our services, whether it's removal of snow or salting of ice. You talk to us about signs, you talk to us about business licenses, all those things that go into making this place where you want to live. And that's what we need. We need that outside perspective to ensure that we do the right things in terms of future codes, regulations, and policies and implementations. So, Mayor, you stole the thunder with that. Thank you. We talked about the consultants. Again, I have a great team. You've heard of their experiences. Some were being modest. Robin worked in Palm Springs, Florida.
St. Petersburg.
St. Petersburg, thank you. I don't have the memory I used to. Melanie was the director of planning at Town and Country, community that oftentimes I think tries to emulate us in terms of what they do. And Travis, as I said, is our technology wizard and also will be the person that handles a lot of our website items and social media in the short term. Travis has already created a separate page, so to speak, is that the right word? On our website for our master plan update. So when you go home tonight and you find it, click on it, you'll see your name is in lights. So our consultants will know. It's funny, and Chief Loyal can attest to this. He was the chair of our town center update team. There'll be questions, there'll be conversations, there'll be things that we're looking at. And it's just like, we need an expert. And you'll know when the time is right, so will we, and we'll get that expert for you. The city council, through the mayor's efforts and others, was kind enough to give us an extra little sum of money to orchestrate this update, which is inclusive of the consultants. So we'll do whatever it takes to get you the information you need to make the best decisions and provide the direction. timeline. I skipped one, sorry. Public processes. This is an interesting one because obviously representatives of the community. I can tell that just by brief introductions, trustees, not-for-profit organizations. Michael, basically, Mr. Marshall and Michael, they cook hot dogs at our summer concerts. I can tell you, that's no small task with 800 of them at 80 degrees. So if I left somebody out that's got hot dogs with them, I apologize. But like I said, it's just great. But we need to engage the public. And from the perspective of the department, and this is something Jonathan Barnett mentioned in one of our early emails about his role in this process, we probably need to get to them sooner. So the thought is engaging the public as quickly as we can, even maybe before our next meeting, and asking them several questions. What do you like about Wildwood? What do you not like about Wildwood? What is the one thing that you want Wildwood to preserve? What is the one thing you want Wildwood to change? Those kinds of questions. Those are the things you need to know. And if done correctly, we've got a company that did this for us years ago for our village green. We just through the use of social media, our website, and Zoom, we were able to get 1,000 responses to what our master plan for village green should look like, should have. And so I think from our perspective, we'd like to launch that and get some endorsement from you at our next meeting so that we can basically get that started. The sooner you have that public input, the better off I think you'll all be in terms of having the grounding, you know, that your fellow citizens concur with you or they have a different opinion, and that's one you need to explore as a group. So we met today with a firm that has done a number of these for us. It's called Silver Tablet Marketing. A lady named Debbie Ward. So we're kind of sketching out a proposal with her. That proposal I hope to have the city council for the next meeting on February. And then I think from there, I'd like to have her at our next meeting via Zoom or in person so we can kind of talk about what we're doing. I think things might be the best approach to get that kind of immediate input and tangible and good input as well. So public input. So that's the first step. Yes, sir.
Can I add on that? I just want to emphasize and drill that a little bit more, that input piece. I mean, your presence here, you all bring a different perspective. And I know most of you, so I know that we've got a good group here that really brings different backgrounds, whether it's Vince who lives in the town center or Becky that is a business owner and interacts with a lot of the residents in the town center. You know, you all have a different perspective, and it's unique to where you live. It's unique to where you go to shop. It's, you know, it's very unique, you know, and so I think for me, I feel very good about our group here because you're going to bring a lot to the table from your viewpoint of view. And you know, I think we'll learn a lot from each other here, you know, as we talk about, you know, topics here, because, you know, some topics may apply to, you know, impact you. There may be topics where you don't see that, but someone else in the room will. So I do think keeping that open mind is so important. But that input from the public, you know, I think will be eye-opening. You know, we do, and we have a lot of data already. We do surveys from time to time. And it's pretty amazing what the residents tell us. You know, there's a voice out there that, you know, comes together when you get all these results. You know, whether it's, I can tell you off the top of my head, you know, you see it in the surveys, but even in talking to people, how many times I hear a couple of places to eat, you know, for the family that we can enjoy just a nice meal without being too fancy or too casual. You know, that's a common theme. But there's a lot out there and you know, it all depends too on, you know, where we are in our stages in life too, you know, I mean, you know, a young family might have a different point of view about something than a retired couple, you know, so I think that's what's great too about Wildwood and the uniqueness that we bring, so you know, one of the things that I really have tried to do as I've been in this role as mayor is really focusing on the education about our city. There's a lot of great things that, you know, as Joe mentioned, from a planning perspective. And I was just using an example because they've heard me say this before. I'm trying to drill this one in because, you know, the town center is unique. Our Planning and Zoning Commission friends know that the town center is unique, what it allows. But, you know, if you talk sometimes to folks, you have someone who lives right adjacent to Franklin County, all the way out west. They might be worried that they think what they see in town center is gonna be in their front yard next. But the way we have our plans, our land use, doesn't allow that. In fact, the town center is only 2% of our whole city. And you know, if you look at all the parks that we have in Wildwood, if you added up all that acreage, that's 20% of our city. I could pick up the cities of Baldwin and Ellisville combined, and they would just fit in our parks. And if you talk about size of Wildwood, 88 municipalities in St. Louis County. If I took 65 of the smallest in land area, they would fit in Wildwood. That's how massive we are. So there's a lot of good information out there. And I think especially for me and those on the council, you know, we become familiar with the topics and provide that assurance to residents, you know, if they have a concern or sometimes, you know, things that, you know, someone might hear, you know, might get interpreted differently. But we've got great plans that really protect this city out there. And so I provide that assurance all the time. I mean, 87% of our Wildwood is considered rural, or it's not town center, or was previously developed. That's a lot of space. That's a lot of space. We even have a small industrial area. It's like 1%. You know, I might learn that. But anyway, you know, there's a lot to learn. So really just have that open mind. But I also think throughout your life, you've been to places, you've seen things. I go to visit sometimes, whether it's a vacation or visiting another city, and I might see something and say, boy, I like how they do that there. We should do that here. So you probably have seen things in other cities and places that maybe remind you of Wildwood. So, you know, those are things that, you know, we should put on the table to discuss, to see. You know, sometimes someone's perfected something or figured out something that's different. I do encourage that open perspective of this. And again, you know, you're all here for a reason because of your background. And, you know, a big part of, you know, you see this even in the master plan is economic development. You know, our business community, our town center area that really focuses. We have businesses outside of the town center. But, you know, how do we get that thriving stability in place? You know, we've got a lot of businesses that are opening. There's some that close. There's a lot of activity. We have a list. We can give you all the openings that have occurred. I mean, there's been a lot of excitement. Sometimes it's not right in front of you. And sometimes, you know, you hear things about vacancy, you know, but then again, we don't have that much of a big footprint. So if you have one or two big locations that sit empty, it feels like a lot. But, you know, you put things into perspective. If you look at, you know, how we are and how we compare, it's pretty interesting. You know, there's a lot to learn, but I do think that, you know, there's a lot of people counting on us in this room really to help set the tone for the future of the city, for it to thrive from a residential perspective, from a business perspective and for all the visitors too that come to Wildwood, so that we could preserve the great identity we have as a city. So I just wanted to drill that, the input. There's a lot of great perspective out there, plus your own, whether it's, you know, your own personal or professional experience.
And again, you are the main sounding board. And I think we can supplement your input with a well-designed survey of our residents and property owners to ensure that you feel comfortable when you are asked to vote on a motion. That at the end of the day, you can leave this building and know I had the information I needed and I know I made the right decision. And that comes from information. So what we provide as professionals to you, but also what our residents and property owners offer. I'm going to take the liberty of just telling a real quick story. It won't take long. So if you've lived out here long enough, you probably remember Gilbert's Perennial Farms on Wilson Ford Road. Before perennials became available at Home Depot and Lowe's and et cetera, that was the place to go. My wife used to go there with the kids. It was a great place. They had ponds with fish, goldfish, et cetera, et cetera. They ultimately closed and it's now something else. After they had closed and years later, I was working here. My wife and I were out driving on Austin Fort Road and we went by and we reminisced about it. And then she said something to me that I think rings true today. She said, you know, it still looks like it did when we used to visit here 10 years ago. And that's because of the master plan. The master plan said that area stays rural, it stays non-urban zoning, and we allow 1 unit for every 3 acres of ground. So that's the nicest compliment I ever got. Hey, we did our job. So timeline, I mentioned a year. We kind of hoping that on a regular basis we'll meet monthly. There may be some alterations to that as we engage later in the process when we have a draft document, because that's the other time we do our public engagement. We try to do it at the start. And certainly when we have a draft document, we want to go back out and see what people think of what we come up with, the draft in terms of the changes. And so in those instances in the past, we try to do a blitz, so to speak. Instead of spreading it out multiple weeks, we may do 2 meetings in 1 week, public input sessions. There's ways to do that now that are, I think, far superior than what we used to do before the advent of the internet, social media, and Zoom. So I think we can do a very robust public engagement and work within the timelines that we promised you. And that's roughly about a year and a meeting a month, unless circumstances dictate otherwise. But ultimately, those decisions on the number of meetings and when they occur, we can review it if you're available. So we'll always defer to you and do the best we can with as many people in this group as possible. The product of the update is a new master plan. And we've given you different versions of different plans, but at the end of the day, it's a self-contained document that, for the most part, contains everything from A to Z. And that's our goal, is to go through the plan in an appropriate manner that makes you comfortable and end up with a plan that you all would ultimately recommend to our Planning and Zoning Commission. A quirky thing under state statute, the Planning and Zoning Commission adopts the master plan. City Council only endorses and ratifies it. So the actual action is by Planning and Zoning Commission. And for the most part, that's under state statute. So that's why we have our 8 citizen members of the Planning and Zoning Commission participating, because they need, as far as the process is concerned, to be aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So your role, consultant's role, public processes, timelines, and our singular product, which is our goal. Any questions?
What will be a quorum?
Well, we have 23. So it'll be 12. So that's the good news. A large group like this, if there were 7 of us and a couple miss or 3 miss, we don't have a meeting. With this size group, you can almost guarantee we'll always have a quorum. We'll always be able to conduct business and take actions if we need to. So yes, sir.
You know, during the town center update process, we recognized that it needed some tweaking from what had originally been perceived and through time. Do you see that? I know it's required that we do this, but is it more than just an exercise, a required exercise? Do you guys as a professional see that there are some parts of it that are different than certainly 30 years ago, but even 10 years ago that require some?
Well, I'd like to think that some of the core goals, objectives, and policies are timeless relative to wildlife. We're protecting our steep slopes, our watersheds from undue development activity or just degradation due to the storms we have anymore. So the things that I think have been refocused, and I can certainly go into greater detail later on, but in 1995, we engaged a gentleman named Dr. David Hammer. He was the department head at the School of Natural Resources at the University of Missouri-Columbia. We asked him, what's the biggest threat physically? The physical environment, what's the biggest threat? And he said, stormwater runoff and erosion. We did a lot of things the first 10 years to address that, and we thought we had a kind of all intents and purposes solved. We didn't. It's come roaring back. Part of it is we forgot some of the lessons we were taught the first 10 years, but it's just nowadays we don't get steady rains. We get 8 inches in 4 hours, and then we have to deal with the aftermath, which is oftentimes threats to our public infrastructure, private properties that people own, and just generally a threat to the welfare and safety of our residents. And you know this better than anyone as the former chief of the fire district. Those things can come, they can come quickly, and catch people off guard. So I see us, at least in terms of this planning process, kind of doubling back and looking at what we thought we solved and maybe we didn't. And then I also see just some of the threats that come from a world economy, things we need to be prepared for here. Those things that will stabilize us. You know, 10 years ago, did we think Amazon would be what Amazon is today and what it's done to brick and mortar for the most part? I commend Ms. Baker. Opening a brick and mortar store these days is, you know, that's like standing at a very tall cliff and not knowing how deep the water is. It takes a brave soul, so thank you. So I guess there's some things out there that we didn't know about 10 years ago. We do now, AI, things like that. You know, it's just, I think we need to be timely and recognize what the world's doing and how we fit into that. Sure.
Yeah, and Joe brings up a good point that, you know, we have, you know, a lot of great strengths, you know, our plans. But he brought up a point about the threats and used an example from, you know, just a planning perspective. But there are threats, and my eyes have been opened up as I've been on the council and even now as mayor. We've got threats that do hit us from all angles. You know, I look at, you know, financially from a governance perspective, you know, we're limited in what we collect, you know, from revenue for our city. We rely on a pool formula, which is a great formula because we do benefit greatly from it. But you know, there have been threats to that formula in the past. And if that affects our revenue, then ultimately the decision has to be made, what gets cut? Or do we have to go and find a new way to tax, which I don't think anybody would like. So, it's really, that's it, what can you cut or how do you find new money? So there are threats to how we collect our revenue. There are threats that come even from the state. They're constantly passing or proposing bills that could either hurt us if they get approved, or they're bills that we just hope they don't make it through the process, but they're always looking at ways that, I think the ultimate theme that I've seen over the years is taking control away from the local cities. So we've seen examples of that, and that is not unique to Wildwood. You can ask any other city and they will tell you the same thing, and we've got examples of those. There are bills even proposed today that, if they went through, would affect the revenue of this city. But oftentimes they propose bills that reduce our revenue, but they never find a way to replace it. And so then we're stuck trying to figure that out. So there are threats legislatively from outside Wildwood through the state. We've got, obviously, region, has to be competitive. I just attended a meeting on Friday. There's a bill about consolidation for the cities, St. Louis and the county. That would certainly change things. Great. But we saw this a few years ago, so I think that, we've got such a great formula here that we have to work to protect it and improve it. I mean, there's always ways. We have to accept the brutal facts, and I think the input will certainly shed a light on that too, how we can help the city move forward. Thank you for letting me say that.
Certainly, anytime. Again, other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question about how this overlaps with the town center update team and the work that we did. How will this overlap with that?
Kind of describe the master plan are the parents, mom and dad, partner. The town center plan is the adult child. So we actually do our own update process of that particular document, notwithstanding the master plan. So we do two updates, one to the master plan, which does contain a very broad description of the town center. So we'll talk about it. But the town center is 5 major components. It's a boundary. It's the land use map. It's the design standards. It's the street network, and it's the architectural guidelines. And from the standpoint of a master plan, it's the town center plan has much more detail. And then remember, the master plan, to change the master plan, it requires an action of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then at City Council to endorse it, it requires a supermajority. So if we have an architectural requirement in the town center plan, it's guidelines that says all siding shall be wood. You don't want to change the master plan for that. So we separate out the town center. We'll talk about its description and the densities that are allowed there and the types of units, but we won't go into the detail that the group that Chief Loyal chaired when we did it, as well as many others at the table. My apologies.
Thank you.
Questions or comments? Just as a sidebar, Louis, I think when you get to economic development, one of the things we consistently hear is, well, other communities around the region provide incentives for development. And we've done a couple. I don't know if they've been as successful as we hope, but there's always that in the background of we can make town center and probably develop quicker if we're willing to offer public incentives. So the perspective Louis brings will be invaluable. There's positives, but we also want to know the negatives. And I think you probably experienced that ebb and flow.
Yeah, we've always used the terminology, quality of place is measured, quality of life is subjective. So when we're looking at economic development side, we want that quality of that to be measured. And how do you measure that? And that's by decade. We we want people to come to Wildwood. We want them to go home on Friday night and say, let's head to Wildwood Town Center and spend a couple hours and you know, it's gonna help economic, it's gonna help small businesses, it's gonna help the tax revenue, just everything.
Sharpen your pencil.
Oh,
I'll be
yeah.
asking you a lot.
I've seen it grow and it's gone up and down and so excited to help.
We hired, and I'll quit, sorry. When we came up with the concept of town center, to the benefit of the appointed city council and mayor, they said, let's get the best at what we want to do, and that's new urbanism. So they went and got a gentleman named Andres Durrani and his wife Elizabeth Plater-Zyberg, who was on faculty at University of Miami. They were kind of the advocates of new urbanism, which is what you see here. It's basically taking new development, making it look like old Main Street, walkable, great architecture, the emphasis of the vehicles. He was so popular at one point, he was on Nightline with Ted Koppel, kind of preaching the religion, so to speak. So it's a tough sell when we started. A lot of other communities now have embraced it. Wing Haven was one of the first over in St. Charles County, Newtown in St. Charles, the city, is probably the prime example. And you see bits and pieces of it now. In terms of commercial developments, if you're familiar where Million Park used to be and
Streets of St. Charles. And
Yeah.
I mean, Chesterfield's gonna be doing almost the exact same thing where the mall was. It's
so we maybe were a little ahead of our time, but it was kind of hits the nail on the head. Dwani said it should take you about 30 years to see a pretty good profile of what new urbanism will look like in town center. Well, we're there and we still are kind of mixed. So
And I think there are some brutal facts like that. You know, you often, you know, in the seat that I wear, I hear a lot, it's one of the big things I hear about is there's a lot of development. Well, the last major development that got approved that was built was Villages of Brightly and Main Street Crossing. That was back in 2015, 2016. We have not had a major development get built since those got completed. And there's one that's on the books, you know, on the west side of 109, the reserve, but they haven't yet put a shovel in the ground. And even that's come down in homes, I believe. So there's no active subdivision being built in the town center at all right now. There's a small one off of Melrose, but that's about, I think, all of it. I mean, other than that, maybe a couple of individual homes. There's not much development activity. And if you look at it from a commercial perspective, the last commercial building that got built is the one that you see across the parking lot. I don't even know if it qualifies as commercial because it's the assisted living. Movie theater really was the last big commercial, and that was before 2008. So we have not seen a single commercial building go up. I can bet you can count a lot if you go down Manchester Road once you leave Wildwood. And so whether it's intentional or not, I mean, you have to see the numbers, see the facts. There's some numbers out there that you'll see that, you know, the perception sometimes doesn't match what is actually happening. You know, and so, you know, I think it's going to be good for us to really have that factual information in front of us. But I think we have challenges, and economic development was raised. You know, we have a beautiful town center area here. Joe has educated me in the past of why we're in this area, the two major roads, 109 and 100. You know, it's the most level area in Wildwood. So it, you know, made a lot of sense why this area made good sense to be the town center. And so we want to see it thrive. Business owners are going to provide a lot of perspective on what's been working, what isn't working. But, you know, I think that in the simplest way, I feel like the way to describe it is like an engine, economic development in Wildwood. We get the engine started and it's going, and then sometimes it starts to choke. Then you have to get it started again. You got to get it to the point where it's just running beautifully, nice and smoothly. And so, you know, I think every time we get close to that, but once it gets to that point where it's running, it's self-sustaining. You build an economic ecosystem that thrives off itself. It feeds off itself. You create reasons for people to come and they can buy their groceries, step into the dry cleaner, go get their dog food. We've heard that from the business owners here. There's some things that work because you see that, if you have an ecosystem for the 3 French hens and the porch, formerly Imogene's. That created an ecosystem where those people would shop in those stores. And you see that here. So I think sometimes it's just kind of getting it that little push to get that ecosystem thriving. I think the most exciting things that we have coming up, we have a beautiful village green that will be completed, the first phase right next to City Hall this year. I think if you think there's a sense of community already, I think wait till we see this. But the college is probably the most exciting thing. If you haven't been where the college is, that building, beautiful. It's probably the largest building in Wildwood. And it's 3 stories, I believe. It's, was it 4 stories? But it is a beautiful addition to the campus. It is truly going to push that campus forward, really, as far as, the ability to serve students. And there's a lot of students that go there because a lot of kids that take advantage of the partnership between the Rockwood schools and the college, they get college credits while they're in high school. So that's another ecosystem that's just ready to go. And so I think we have these great little niches here. And I'm glad that, Wildwood is what it is. I mean, not like a lot of other cities. That's another thing I always tell folks, and I reassure them, is that's why we have a plan. We just don't have this growth happening uncontrolled. It's managed through the plan. So a lot of great things. And, you're all ambassadors for the city. So people, you talk to people, get their feedback, but also help educate them on the things that you hear, because there's a lot of good that you could do with that. So I'm super excited. We're gonna have an incredible group and an update to the master plan.
I have a question, and shame on me for not knowing more. For the first phase of the Village Green, are you able to just briefly go over what that is?
Well, principally, it's going to be what we call this, the Civic Oval. And so all of our events that we have been holding down next to the theater on that open field will move here. So our concerts celebrate Wildwood. There'll be an area for a stage and then eventually concession and restrooms. Also, we're going to have some walking trails added into that. So from a standpoint of what you'll see, it's going to be more passive. But as with any first phase, all the stormwater, all the utilities, all those things that make it function, that's where we're spending most of our money. And that's will carry us through to phase 2. Phase 2, through the efforts of Melanie and others, we've already gotten a grant from the St. Louis County Municipal Park Grant Commission for an all-inclusive playground. So any child or any adult needs to access, they can fully access all the play equipment, and there'll be areas for all abilities. And that's scheduled for completion in 2026 based upon the grant application. So we'll have 2 immediate phases at Village Green, and the all-inclusive playground, we've hired a company called Unlimited Play. They've done these here in the region and across the country. They become regional destinations because there are so few of them. And we feel that's going to be an economic spur, so to speak, or spur of economic interest in Sunset.
I would like to add one thing. I know many people in Wildwood. As I mentioned, I have actually helped many people purchase homes, sell homes here in Wildwood. And I did help a family relocate in 2017. And I was talking with her recently, the wife, and she said, you know what, Heather, I wouldn't know anything on Old Manchester if you hadn't told me about it. And I think that that's important for the businesses that are established. I thought, man, we're failing if people really don't, know about our businesses that are here.
I have some good news.
Yeah.
Since Ms. Keefe's come on board, we've kind of rediscovered Manchester Road, which is actually the original location of Route 66. And in 2026, we'll be celebrating Route 66 100th anniversary. So the city council is formulating a grant program to help small businesses and residents that live along there. We've got a roadside park that we're rethinking in terms of how to launch that. There's just a lot of things that we're doing that we hope bring tourists to Wildwood Route 66, because we know it's a popular venue across the country, from Chicago to Los Angeles. So we kind of rediscovered something that was a hidden gem, I think, for many years. And we have a capable staff, and they've really worked hard to kind of launch that kind of thought that 2026 could be a great year for tourism in Wildwood. So
As you travel out west, just about everybody claims to be a part of Route 66. We actually are. We should really promote that.
it is. It was the original location. It's shifted all over everywhere, but we have that claim, and Onion Buster cross-country race.
Onion Derby.
Onion Derby. And I've been told that the runners slept up there by where Schnucks Wildwood Crossing is now, as they were crossing the country on foot. So,
If I may,
please.
I just want to put a plug in. We were talking earlier about the town center plan and how that fits in with the master plan. Well, we have another bigger planning effort that we're embarking on this year with the Historic Preservation Commission, and that's a citywide historic preservation plan. So again, it would be, the adult child, so to speak, to our to our master plan, which has the broad goals we have for historic preservation. While this plan will get more into the specifics of how that will play out, what our milestones and goals are for that. And one component of that plan is going to focus on Route 66 revitalization. And so we're going to want to engage the business community, residents, and everyone we can in that effort as well, so that we can have that bigger conversation of how do we promote that corridor and really drive economic development through that promotion.
You'll all be invited to some of those meetings. Obviously, you can attend all of them if you want, but those that kind of focus more on the parent and how it spawned the adult child, those are the ones who are actually, will certainly identify for you. All of our meetings are open to the public.
Oh, and I should also just say that we have an open house tomorrow night that you are welcome to attend. There will be a hot chocolate bar with a KO chocolate. I looked locally to see if I could find some sort of Wildwood equivalent. Unfortunately, no one's done hot chocolate yet in Wildwood that I could find. But please come by. It will be a wonderful workshop. We'll have St. Louis County Historic Buildings Commission doing a presentation, our Wildwood Historical Society. We'll be talking about the commission program. So it really should be a great night, and it'll be an opportunity to talk for preservation.
Keep prepared the flyers. I placed them at your seats. If you have time tomorrow, it's an open house, so you can stay as long as you would wish you. I'm going to get to the next topic because we're getting very close to the time limit. In your binders, and I do want to compliment Ms. Keefe, Ms. Crippleton, Mr. Newberry, and Pepperdine, our administrative assistant. They did a wonderful job. Give you something that obviously you can keep track of things, you can add to it as we go along. We'll always have our information 3-hole punch if you want to keep it there. Also, if you're shortly have a QR code, so if you just want to do it on your iPad phone, you can just scan the QR code and carry it with you wherever you go. So in the binder is a schedule of meetings. It's the full city schedule of meetings. So every meeting that we know we're going to have between now and December 31st, 2025 is listed. It's in the very back of the binder. I think it shows our next meeting, Mr. Newberry,
Currently, it shows the meeting scheduled for February 11th, but we had discussed a potential change to that.
So based upon our conversation today with our public engagement specialist, I was hoping that maybe we could accommodate Wednesday, February 19th at the next meeting. That will give her a little more time to put together. I think it will be a very interesting discussion about engaging the public as we start our process. February 19th, Wednesday, we will be here. Have some snacks, might even have some leftover hot chocolate. We planned this when it was really, really cold out, so that's why we thought hot chocolate's a natural. So we're at public comment.
We have no attendance on Zoom, and Mr. Marshall is here.
No, you bring back a lot of great memories. I remember when there was no town center. And I do remember Jonathan's first presentations. What you really need is a hotel and a theater.
I got it.
We thought we get paid her.
Then I heard years later we need Target, so.
Yeah.
That's get everything more. So I'm a big fan of before we leave, and we've got about 13 minutes. I'm gonna go around the table. I'm gonna start with Dr. Rambo. Any last thoughts before we close?
No, we started the tax-based discussion, the revenue discussion. We need to have more of that because there's a lot of nuances that we didn't really get to. And the other thing is that I will mention is we need to have a lot more discussion about our topography. Out west of town center, we are the foothills of the Ozarks. The hollers, the hills aren't that high, but the hollers sure are deep. Right? And that's why we have the erosion and runoff problems that we have. And that's why we're zoned 3 acres, not because of aesthetics. It's more a practical matter. That's all the, we can't have more density out there because it will cause runoff, and we already are having runoff problems. So there are some practical issues as well as the aesthetic issues, and we have to address all those things as we go through this process. So.
Thank you, sir.
No, just looking forward to.
Mr. Clayton?
Just for the community outreach, it's certainly important for all the right reasons. We honestly want the input. But having sat on the commission for a couple of years, repeatedly, people get upset because there's a change coming close to them that they weren't aware of. And, the zoning is within the master plans, and they don't like it, and they're frustrated. Well, when did that change? And nobody told me about that. If I'd have known, I would have said something. And so I think, so we need all the right reasons to get the input, but also to just be able to say honestly that, hey, we did the very best job we could at trying to notify and make everybody available of the process and have the ability to input.
Chief?
I think the only thing I would add is, and the mayor mentioned this at the coffee last time, is I think there's a perception generally that we have no issues or problems in Wildwood. Oh, you guys are from Wildwood. I know the state highway department says, you don't need the money, you're from Wildwood. And I wonder if there's a way we can weave that into this whole plan that while it is a wonderful community, we still have needs that we warrant and our citizens warrant be having addressed. So that might be one of the, challenges we face.
Mr. Rowdy?
Travis, could you put up the master plan? The drawing.
Mhm.
Would it be beneficial if we took the categories and we put together a matrix, and the headings on that matrix would be industrial, non-urban, down the line, and then list square footages for each of those components, and maybe list revenue by block and list costs by block. We can kind of see where the revenue is coming from. We can see where we're spending our money. And we can use those types of numbers and analysis to drive a plan.
We could certainly try. We'll not guarantee it for the next meeting, though.
No. I mean, and maybe something we end up with somewhere around there.
Well, that's, yeah, I think the revenue part's probably the most challenging, and that's sometimes folks have a misconception of it, is we don't collect a penny from any house when it comes to real estate. So even when a new proposal comes in, whether somebody builds 10 houses or 100 houses, we don't earn anything out of it. In fact, the only thing is the cost, because there's more roads, there's a cost to it. Now, there is a aspect of it that the population benefits us because the way that pool tax formula distributes money does look at population. And that's how they determine what Wildwood gets, which is why I say we benefit a lot from it. So if in that respect, population wise, which, you know, this gives you also the density of those areas, that might be something that,
You could drill that.
yeah, maybe there's something there, but yeah, I think cost wise, you know, the city really, you know, it comes down to, I think, primarily public works, you know, the roads. We don't manage the infrastructure as far as sewer, water. So there might be some limited information like that, but maybe they can kind of figure out something like that.
I'm thinking that you have a city budget.
Yeah.
You know what our inflows. Don't really care where they come from. But how do we apportion them? Where do they go?
Oh,
Can I
okay.
take that inflow and split it up by category? And then take a look at, okay, here's how much money we spend, and how do we apportion that? And do we have a picture of where the money's going and where the money's coming from? And will that help balance the sizes of these blocks? That's what I'm here for.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way that, I think they really, I don't know that they used the financial side to determine those,
No,
you
but
know,
it could be a
sizes.
portion. It could be data.
I will tell you that in 1995, Mr. Barnett, another gentleman, do an analysis, and they made the statement, and I'm going from memory, that if a house is valued at $385,000, that's a revenue gain for the city. Anything below that is a revenue loss. And I don't know, I don't remember the details. And obviously now that's 30 years ago. So those numbers have changed, but there was that kind of question. So does all of these new homes benefit Wildwood? Do they not? And that's where we came up with that number. But rest assured, we'll do our best to see if we can figure something out.
Just additional data.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely could look at that. And I think that's a good point, is it's something that gets overlooked when decisions are made. So as we look at things, think about the financial impact it has for the city. You know, because we want to make sure too that we're not deciding on something that be, for example, costly for the city to do or take on. Because we are very limited in our resources. Our operating budget is between 12 and 13 million a year. We basically spend what we get. That's it. The costs keep going up. The money coming in is not going up as fast.
We need to really do a good job of promoting what's wonderful about Wildwood, such as Route 66. We have some great biking areas out there. We need to really maybe sell that to the biking community. And let's put a plug in for our skiing. We got the only skiing in the state, I think.
Thank you. Ms. Peck?
I'm just excited to get to know everybody and hear your different varying opinions. I can tell they're diverse, and I'm here to learn as much as I can contribute as well.
I'd like to see us drill down some more. I know we've got an erosion committee, but I'd like to see us drill down on that and let the community know more and in this committee know more about our challenges in erosion. Whether it's building new subdivisions or whether it's existing ones and how it affects our infrastructure. And then density is the topic I hear about constantly. So I think we really need to look at that with a lot of thoughtfulness. And then I'm just really proud of Wildwood because we do a lot of community engagement. And so I think us being able to start there is going to be very helpful to this committee.
Ms. Baker?
Good.
Ms. Boomer-Schlegel?
Yeah, Heather said it perfectly. So I'm really looking forward to learning a lot and hopefully contributing.
Ms. Helfrey?
Just a couple things. First and foremost, in all the committees I've worked on, you all are always here. And so I don't know if everybody knows how much you do for the city as a team. And so I personally am very grateful, especially because you all put up with me on the team basis, especially Travis, who gets my phone calls. Just a couple of things with the crossover from planning and zoning, and that would be when we are talking about these different things, it would be interesting, for example, with the industrial area, to see how much of that land is still available for development, as opposed to it's full, right? Can't go any further. And then I will also say, you know, I've lived here since 1996, and I've been on several committees in planning and zoning, and then I still don't know all the things that we have. So I guess, you know, we talked about this at the Celebrate Wildwood Committee, getting the word out, especially to the people that don't live right around these wards, to get the word out to those areas about the things that we have and maybe getting a little more information. So
Communication piece may be something we all want to consider as part of one of the elements.
Yes, I'm looking to really revitalize the economic development part of the master plan. I think that's the engine that we need to go. It all kind of starts there. And I think it might be helpful, Joe, if you could just give a short blurb on how the city where the city gets its money. It doesn't come from, you know, this area. There's only like 4 areas that we get any money from.
Yeah, we'll put there in our budget, there's a number of pie charts that represent our revenues and expenditures. They're easy to read, and certainly paint a very clear picture. Mr. Mayor, any other things you'd like to add?
No, I think I've said enough.
Ms. Keith?
Oh, but I got a last minute plug. I guess I would just give you another fun fact. Well, no, I'm going to say it. Affordable housing. One thing I hear a lot about as a planner, and honestly, I have personal experience as a planner that works for the city of Wildwood and would love to live in Wildwood, but maybe has found it difficult to move here. But I've also, working in historic preservation, I talk to a lot of families who have lived here for generations. And one common theme I get from them is, well, my kids are growing up and, you know, they would love to live near family, but, you know, they're priced out of Wildwood. So families that have lived here for generations are, you know, kind of losing their kids. And some of it may be choice, you know, we all end up moving around, and I will say a lot of my friends are boomeranging back, but we're having an affordability crisis across the country. This is a pretty widespread planning program or planning problem. And it is something that many cities are looking at addressing. I know the county is addressing it in its planning efforts. So I just want to put that plug in your ear. That's something we might consider here in Wildwood, housing opportunities for others. The other thing people don't always think about, and I've noticed that happening in Wildwood, is there's a lot of job vacancies here for, you know, like Panera Bread staff or for Big Chief staff or for those jobs that maybe pay a lower wage. If we want a thriving economic development scene here in Wildwood, people need a place close by to live so that they can work those jobs. So having just a variety of housing options in the city actually drives our economic development because we can then get people to fill those jobs. So I want to say that as my parting thought to you all.
Thank you. Ms. Rippetoe.
I don't really have anything further, but I do look forward to working with all of you, and I think that the variety of backgrounds and everything will make this a great process. And if you have any questions in between meetings, or if we send out materials, that for those of you that don't speak planning, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're happy to help or help guide you through anything if anything is confusing at all. All I have.
Thanks. I don't have anything to add other than to say again, thank you. I think we're very sincere. You're probably here to say it more than you want to hear it, but we mean it every time. Thanks for doing what you're doing in this role. Appreciate what you've given the city your time to update this master plan. Another logistical thing I just want to mention on your table of contents and the binder, the first page is a QR code that goes to what we're going to treat as the project page for this master plan update. If you have any ideas about what kind of information you want to see there or what the public should see there, just let us know and we'll make an effort to get it on there. So that was just created today. So it's a work in progress as we work through this process. I think that's all I have.
Several last thoughts. I have failed in my task. It is 8:33. So I didn't get a 2-hour time frame. Sincere apologies. We have some extra cookies, don't leave them here, they go to the last plate, which is generally me. And then we'll invite for the February 19th meeting, so you can get it programmed in well in advance of then. And thank you very much. As I say, this is kind of an unusual time. Facilitator, we'll have it on the phone. Up our sleeves and get after it, so thank you. Have a great rest of the evening.
You want to do